Captain's Log. The crew has learned of my endeavor to break down the major aspects of Starfield, to boldly do what some men have done before. For all their doubt and trepidation, I have not become disheartened, but instead determined. However, I am no fool. This undertaking will require cunning, skill, and a healthy amount of luck to pull off. When all is said and done, I will stand before them, victorious. Yes, one and all, it's time to dive into Starfield. We've got a lot of ground to cover, but I'm going to attempt to keep it simple. First up, we're going behind the scenes to look at the brains behind the game, Bethesda Game Studios. Rewind the clock back to 1986. Bethesda Softworks was founded by Christopher Weaver in Rockville, Maryland, which is only about 90 minutes from where I live now. Bethesda was a subsidiary to Media Technology Limited, and Weaver's motivation behind Bethesda's formation was described as an experiment to see if the PC market was a viable place to develop games. The studio developed and published a handful of games until they were bought by ZeniMax Media in 1999. In 2001, ZeniMax decided that Bethesda Softworks' two operational units, development and publishing, should be split into two separate entities. Thus, now we have Bethesda Softworks LLC, which handles publishing, and Bethesda Game Studios, which handles game development. The first game that Bethesda Game Studios officially developed was The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind in 2002. After that, a couple of drag racing games, then we got The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion in 2006. Next was Fallout 3 in 2008, my first ever dip into The Elder Scrolls with Skyrim in 2011, Fallout 4 in 2015, and a bunch of re-releases or spin-offs that aren't worth mentioning. In 2021, Xbox Game Studios, the subdivision of Microsoft responsible for game development, acquired ZeniMax Media and, by extension, Bethesda Softworks. According to game director Todd Howard, active development of Starfield had been ongoing since the release of Fallout 4 in November 2015. By mid-2018, the game was in a playable state. So, today, I'm here to tell you just how playable it is. Just like in Skyrim and Fallout 4 before it, Starfield's main story gets you started on your journey and then steps aside for the player to ignore it while doing dozens, if not hundreds, of other things, usually unrelated to it. I know some of you that have played previous open-world Bethesda games may be curious as to what dire straits your character will start in, but it's actually not terrible. You are a simple miner in a mining outpost employed by Argos Extractors, one of the many corporations that do business across the settled colonies. At the very least, you're not on a prisoner transport headed to your own execution, or forced to watch your beautiful suburban life be ground to dust by a nuclear explosion. Your character's backstory is actually very much up to you. Once you complete the opening sequence, you can create your character using a great amount of options. Once you navigate the maze of dials and sliders to get your character looking fine, we get into their background. Your background influences what skills you will have to unlock upon starting the game, and there are a lot of backgrounds to choose from, so be sure to browse them all before making your choice. I went with Soldier for fitness, ballistics, and boost pack training, because I would undoubtedly be running, jumping, jetpacking, and shooting damn near all the time. Now we pick traits. You can pick up to 3 traits to complement your chosen background, your gameplay style, or both. Some traits will mark you as a member of one of the main factions in the game. Some will provide buffs, whether you are playing solo or with companions. There are even some that will start you with a house, which you'll have to pay a mortgage on, or a pair of living, breathing, happy parents that you send money back to every so often, and you could even visit them. Most of the traits that buff you come with drawbacks as well, so if none of them sit right with you, you could just not choose any traits. Alternatively, if you wind up unhappy with the traits you chose, there are certain NPCs relevant to certain traits that can basically cure or absolve you of that trait. This would of course bar you from using traits that positively affect dialogue with certain characters as well. Now, in an attempt to keep things neat, I'm going to break the game down into 2 parts: Starfield on foot and Starfield in space, each encompassing exploration, combat, NPC roles, and dialogue unique to those 2 environments. Not long after creating your character, you're basically given a ship, and not long after that, you can put off the main story for quite some time, allowing you to explore as you see fit. Let's start with the ships. Ships come in all shapes and sizes, and there's a modest number of ships available in the game. A few are even given to you for free, one if you do the Mantis quest, one if you complete the Freestar Ranger quest line, and eventually one if you chose the Kid Stuff trait during character creation. Ships have their strengths and weaknesses, with some being more suited for combat and some being more suited for hauling cargo. The ship you start with, the Frontier, is not particularly suited to either, instead balanced in all aspects, making it pretty useful for most all situations until you progress far enough in the game to get one of the free ships or earn enough to buy yourself a new ship. You can upgrade your ship's weapons or components like your cargo hold, which determines how much you can store on your ship. If you play Fallout 4, you know how important it is to have enough storage to hold all your resources and equipment and what have you, as you will no doubt be over-encumbered almost all the time. Aside from the construction of your ship, you can arrange the paint job or components in the ship builder however you want, as long as your ship passes the mandatory flight check, which clears your creation for takeoff. Once you take off, we get into navigation. It breaks down like this. You've got the galaxy, of course, which has various systems which hold their own sun, planets, moons, space stations, and whatever else happens to be there. If you're close enough to a system, you can travel straight to it. If you're far from a system, you may have to set a course through other systems along a set route, as far as your ship can take you with its current grav jump drive. If you can't clear the whole route, you just get as close as you can and then initiate grav jump again to finish the route. If you're grav jumping through a route of systems you have never visited before, you will have to jump one by one, system by system, until you reach your destination. In order to grav jump, you will have to divert power from other ship systems to your grav systems, or GRV systems, and then your grav jump will initiate. In addition to GRV systems, you have your shield, SHD, engine, ENG, and your 3 weapon systems. Diverting more power into one system means it will work much better or faster, and the total amount of ship power available to route, as well as how much power each system can accommodate, depends on the ship components. If any ship components are damaged in combat, diverting power to the damaged systems will be repaired in the meantime. If you wish to repair any severe ship damage, swap out components, or change ships altogether, you will have to do so at a ship services technician available at pretty much any settlement or town you can land at. Back to navigation, some systems are patrolled by a faction, like the United Colonies, or the Freestar Collective. This means you will be subject to a ship-wide scan for illegal contraband or an active bounty once you enter the system. If you clear the scan, you are clear to go about your business. If you have a bounty on your head, courtesy of the faction that is present in that system, they will engage in combat and try to blow you to smithereens. But you can hail their ship to surrender if you want to live, or just not make your bounty any worse than it already is. If you have illegal contraband and do not have the necessary ship components to mask your contraband, you can surrender it and be taken to jail, or quickly grav jump out of the system. Be warned, if you jump out of that system, you will incur a bounty for evading the law. If you have a bounty on your head from the United Colonies, for example, you will need to visit a self-service bounty kiosk in any system that is not patrolled by the United Colonies and pay off the bounty. Easy as that. If you have contraband you need to get rid of in order to access patrolled systems again, you can cut your losses and jettison all of it, or make your way to the Wolf system where your ship will not be scanned and you can sell it at the Den space station. Alternatively, sometimes you'll be approached at random by a variety of friendly ships. Some may be selling food, some might sell mining surveys which note where to find rich deposits of certain resources, or you could get lucky and run into a trade authority ship where you can buy or sell all manner of things, stolen or unstolen. Now for the good stuff. If you chose the wanted trait or just happened to wander into the wrong space neighborhood, you'll be set upon by enemy ships and thrust into space combat. If you're like me and you abandon the main story as early as possible to go fuck around elsewhere in the galaxy, you've got a hard introduction to this. If you do the main story up until Sarah tells you to speak to Commander Tuala at the UC Vanguard offices, you can join their ranks, and during orientation you are given access to a flight sim, so you can practice ship combat all you want without actually losing anything. Your ship, by default, will have ballistic weapons, laser weapons, and missiles. Lasers or energy weapons excel at depleting enemy shields, where ballistic weapons and missiles are excellent at damaging a ship's hull. With the right skills, you can gain the ability to target specific ship systems of an enemy ship, like say, their engines. Once a ship's engines are damaged enough, you can board them and plunder their booty the old-fashioned way, or just blow them up, loot the wreckage, and move on. You can repair your ship on the fly using ship parts, but They are exceedingly heavy, and I rarely have any on me or stored on my ship, so I usually just have to be an ace pilot every single time I end up in a combat encounter. Just like in open world Bethesda games before it, you can play Starfield in third person or first person, and I've found I do a much better job in ship combat in third person mode. There are 5 skill trees available to spend your skill points in, and the tech tree is where you want to be to improve your ship weapon effectiveness, ship cargo capacity, ship maneuverability, and even improve your ship license in order to pilot better ships. I will go more into skills later on. Since it's important to the space aspect of things, let's talk about your crew and your outposts. Your ship can have its own crew, the size of which is determined by how big your ship is, and your crew will have different proficiencies which will basically tell you where they need to be. If someone has proficiency in outpost engineering, you want them at an outpost. If someone has proficiencies in ship systems, you want them on board your ship. You get the idea. For the real companions like Vasco or Sarah Morgan, you can assign them to stay on the ship, but then choose one of them to bring with you when you're on foot. If you want to hire crewmates specific to roles on a ship or on an outpost, you can find suitable candidates at bars or taverns, of all places, and you can discuss how much you'll be paying them prior to hiring them. As for outposts, planets or moons can be scanned to reveal what resources they are rich in. Just as well, taking on jobs for certain factions or people may see you hauling sizable amounts of resources to other locations in exchange for credits. The first step is to find a planet rich in whatever resources you need, pick a landing spot, and then head on down. Next, find yourself a nice plot of land. Early in your playthrough, you'll get a scanner, which can be used at any time to procure data on local flora or fauna, highlight items of interest like mineral deposits, display the most direct path to your current quest objective, or what we need it for right now, which is placing an outpost beacon. Placing an outpost beacon will bring up an interface, much like the build system in Fallout 4. The main difference being the massive scale of the build area and the addition of an overhead camera to help you build more easily. If you have the necessary materials, you can build the extractors that are necessary to mine or harvest the material you are after, then build a power source to power that extractor, and then link the extractor to the appropriate storage container where it will wait for you to come get it later on. You can also build workbenches for spacesuits or weapons, crew quarters and living quarters for the crew you assign to the outpost, walls and defenses to protect your outpost, decorations to make it all feel like home, and a bunch of other stuff. You can even build your own self-service bounty kiosk if visiting patrolled space in order to find one is too high risk for you. Most important of all, you can link outpost storage units either within the same system or across different systems, essentially linking the storage between them all, making the totality of their resources available no matter which outpost you happen to be at. Similar to Fallout, I'm sure there will be times where your outposts are under attack and you can either respond personally to fend off the creatures or raiders, or trust your defenses and your crew to do the job. I myself do not have the resources to fully explore outpost building, so that's all I can go into right now. This video is going to run a bit longer than I'd have liked, but we can't stop now, so let's get into Starfield on foot. As I'm sure you could guess by the nature of the game, some of the places you land may or may not have breathable atmosphere, and the level of gravity will vary. The combination of your equipped spacesuit and helmet will protect you from a variety of hazards, but the more serious ones on planets with extreme atmospheres will damage you gradually over time or debuff you, requiring the use of special consumables to heal the affliction, or you can cure it by simply escaping that environment by going indoors or off-world. Whether or not your suit is on or off, running and boost packing around will require oxygen, basically stamina, and an equipped boost pack. If you exhaust your oxygen, you will accumulate CO2, and when you have too much of that, your health will start to deplete. Your oxygen capacity can be improved by a variety of things like your spacesuit, fitness skill, drugs or food, and so on. Boost pack capabilities can be improved via the boost pack training skill, as well as finding or modifying a boost pack to your desired specifications. I'm just going to go over skills now since they play a big part in every aspect of the game. Completing quests or killing things grants XP, and that XP allows you to level up, gaining 1 skill point per level. Don't fret too much on how you use skill points because, according to what I could find, you can get every rank of every skill. That means, with the 82 skills in total, and 4 ranks in each skill, also taking into account the fact you start with 3 skills each at rank 1, you will need 325 levels to have every rank of every skill. However, it's not that easy. The first point into a skill puts that skill at rank 1, which is easy. Then, you have to complete a challenge in order to unlock rank 2 of that skill. This may sound annoying, but the challenges are usually so closely in line with that skill that you really don't need to go out of your way to complete it. For example, the boost pack training skill asks you to boost jump during combat, something you'd probably do anyway. Or the weightlifting skill, which asked me to run around with more than 75% of my total encumbrance. Skills can help all manner of gameplay, from giving you the ability to combat slide, to enabling additional dialogue options like bribery, intimidation, or persuasion, to improving your weapon effectiveness or damage resistance, to improving your outpost management or resource management, to further bolstering your spaceship's combat or flight capabilities, to everything else in between. I usually forget I have skill points until I come across an obstacle I need a way to surpass, so I check and see what skill I can unlock to help me in that moment. It'll be touch and go like that until you settle into your playstyle, since how you play will dictate what skills you have use for and what skills you don't. Now, the different outposts, settlements, or towns you wander through will have something to do or see whether you want to do it or not. And here is where we get into the part about this game I hate the most. No matter where, no matter when, you could be walking along, minding your own business. You'll overhear some people talking about something or other, and then boom, you have a new quest or activity in your quest log. You get no say in the matter. My OCD won't allow me to just ignore the quests that I have, so I spend all my time trying to do the lesser quests in order to get back to the main quest lines. I could go to do one quest and gain 10 more in the process. It's infuriating. But also nice, I guess, because you'll always have something to do. There are side quests, main quests, and activities. Activities are the leads you hear people discussing that then get added to your quest log. An activity lead may turn into a full-blown quest line or an unusually long side quest, but those two kinds of quests will usually be worth your time because they'll either pay well or earn you something that sells for a decent amount of credits. Activities are also liable to take you to the far corners of the galaxy, hopping system to system, finding even more shit to do in the process. Speaking of shit to do, planet or moon surfaces, while you can't explore the full totality of a planet, still have a decent amount of things to do in the playable area, and I'm thankful for that. We don't have any land vehicles, which means you'll be hoofing it for long distances in normal gravity conditions or boost packing in low gravity. Once you've been to a landmark or point of interest, you can use your scanner to point to it and fast travel to it from anywhere else on the planet's surface, as long as you're not over encumbered. Some landmarks or points of interest will also have interiors to explore and loot, so don't be afraid to take a break from the landslide of busywork you'll find yourself buried in and explore. You never know what you'll find. Speaking of busywork, some quests may have you transport something to someone, some may have you track down a person, some may have you murder either decent people or criminals, some may have you transport contraband. It's a roll of the dice what you'll get into or whether or not the law will get involved. Your human companions will also have some choice words for you if your actions conflict with their moral compass, and if you make them mad too often, that will for sure hurt your chances of romancing them later on. If you're going to do anything illegal or morally questionable, bring Vasco along. He doesn't judge. Another facet of your adventures will be your choice of weapons. Some creatures have armored hides that may require a heftier bullet to penetrate. Some human enemies can be aggressive, so maybe hit them with elemental damage like fire or radiation to slow them down. Maybe you're in a situation where you can't kill anyone, but they want to kill you. In that case, use an EM weapon to incapacitate your target without actually killing them. All those options probably sound great, but it's going to be a while before you do enough work at your research station and get the necessary skills to unlock the better mods for your weapons. So be sure to look over the pre-installed modifications that will be on the weapons you find. I found a handful of weapons with decent rolls, and I've just been rocking those for the past 30 hours or so of game time. If you have a good weapon you maybe don't want anymore, give it to a companion to use. The same goes for ammo, spacesuits, boost packs, helmets, and clothing. Companions need all that stuff to be the most effective, just like you. There's not much to say about the ground combat itself, as in, there's nothing new or revolutionary about it, but it's still fun. The variety of guns that you'll come across will definitely dictate how you approach combat, but you'll be alright most of the time. Systems and planets show what level enemies will be, suggesting where you should and should not go. The level gap can be overcome with skill and a whole lot of ammo when you're in ground combat, but not so much in space combat, so feel free to get a bit dangerous when you're running around on foot. Some skills like the combat slide or manipulation skill can provide some additional avenues to combat that are worth exploring once these skills are at the right rank. If you find yourself outgunned, look around for a terminal to disable or recruit turret installations to fight on your behalf, or wake robot sentries to fight for you. Accessing the terminals may require a sufficient digipicking skill, which is basically lockpicking, which feeds back into what I said about saving skill points for when you really need them. When companions die, they just go down for a set time and then pop back up after a minute or two. Whether they're actually helpful in combat or not somewhat depends on what weapons you give them, but also the situation you're in. More often than not, companions provide a distraction for the enemy while you shoot and loot. If you sustain a critical hit, like a headshot, it will impair your vision for a short time and, also hurt like hell. To heal from injuries, your med packs are already mapped to a button from the start, but if you don't have any med packs, there's always food, drink, items to heal status effects like burns or frostbite, and some drugs that may improve your combat performance or health regeneration for a time. If you play anything like I do, you'll have nothing to worry about because you'll always be walking around with a war chest worth of guns and ammo and a whole refrigerator's worth of food and drink. The ground and space systems work very well together and I rarely have any issues with anything. Sure, I still get smoked in space combat once every few battles, but I just spent a load of credits on a new ship, so that's about to stop too. The NPCs you come across in Starfield are mostly memorable, and dialogue helps them become even more unique.
Hey, Dad? Will you read to me tonight before bed?
Read to you? Sure. I'd like that very much. You haven't asked me to do that in a long time.
And will you do funny voices for the characters? Like you used to when I was little?
You just try and stop me.
There's some real talent behind some of the voices you hear during your adventures. If you've played Destiny 2, chances are you recognize this voice.
I hope you find Hope Town as full of opportunity as the Trade Authority does. A marvelous place, truly laissez-faire.
And I can't confirm it, but I swear, Rob Wyatoff, voice of John Marston in Red Dead Redemption, voices this guy.
The name's Wyatt Earp, and I'd be most pleased if you'd use one of the spare rooms during your stay, for a modest fee, of course.
I'm sure there's other famous voices I just haven't found yet, but I'm only 57 hours in, so give me a break. As far as dialogue goes, your available dialogue options will depend on your chosen background, some traits, some of your skills, and even your companions. My background as a soldier tends to make a lot of the other military characters more open and honest out of respect for a brother in arms.
And what about you? Just who in the blazes are you anyway? Ex-military, eh?
And my Neon Street Rat trait makes characters in the ghetto, cyberpunk-esque city of Neon much less reluctant to turn me away when I try to talk to them.
You got the look of Neon on you, I can tell.
Special dialogue options like Persuasion will have you enter a minigame of sorts where you have a selection of persuasive dialogue options to choose from, each varying in degrees of success, and each contributing a set amount to the persuasion gauge towards the bottom left of the dialogue window. You get 3 tries, and if you fail to persuade the character, you have to go with another dialogue option, which is usually not ideal, but it's never something you won't financially recover from. You could always reload your most recent save and try persuading again if it means that much to you. As you'd expect with a Bethesda game, bugs or glitches are bound to happen, but in Todd Howard's own words, that's what makes it fun. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but to his credit, he's kinda right, because that's how shit like this can happen. Actual bugs or negative aspects of the game that are actually noticeable include mission waypoints sometimes not being accurate or not updating properly, companions getting lost or not always following behind you like they should, and the gunplay does not feel all that impactful. It's better on controller since you get the vibration and all, but on keyboard and mouse it's nowhere near as immersive. One thing that's probably going to get fixed soon but is still worth mentioning, when you upgrade or change a ship component, all loose items on board your ship, like pens and pencils sitting on tables, or weapons you took the time to hang on a weapon rack, all get gathered up and thrown into your ship's cargo hold. I can understand why the devs would rig it like that, since it would suck if you deleted your armory wing from your ship and lost all the armor and weapons you had hanging in it. But I feel like with some more thought, there could have been another way to go about it. I don't know. All in all, Starfield is a positive experience. It will take you a few hours to get settled into the rhythm of the game, as in navigating from place to place, rapidly transitioning from ship flight to boots on the ground, and so on. Some have said that the fast travel being as good as it is takes away from the adventure and makes the game feel much smaller, but the fix for that is just not fast traveling as often. Take your time, cruise around, see the sights, maybe sing a few sea shanties with the crew.
I miss my dear darling and Atlantis, as I wander the blackness of the deep abyss. My ship is in tatters, all dented and worn, but I trust my old engine to get back by morn. Way-ho, out in the blackness, way-ho, out in the void. Way-ho, get me back to my true love, as quick as an old asteroid. Always happy to meet a stranger. Hope my singing was to your liking.
That'll for sure add at least another 100 hours to your playtime. There's also a New Game Plus mode if you complete the main story, but only your character level and acquired skills carry over. To put a fine point on the game itself, it's like someone took Star Citizen and removed all the complicated, hyper-realistic aspects from the ship controls down to the quests or activities you can undertake, making it a more accessible and enjoyable experience overall. I think I've talked you guys' ear off for long enough. Final verdict, if you've got room on your plate for a spacefaring time sink, Starfield is well worth your time and money. Starfield is available now on the Xbox Series S and X, Xbox Cloud Gaming, and Microsoft Windows. As for if the game will ever get released on PlayStation, I don't want to say no definitively, but it's very, very highly unlikely. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to see more. This has been your captain, Cygnus Jason, and I will see you among the stars.